Would you like to introduce your Greek friend from ABC here?
Yes, ABC's Peter Charalambous, ABC News Investigative Unit covering the Trump trial in Manhattan. Hi, Peter.
Imagine if the Thomas Jefferson University kid had to announce your graduation.
Oh my gosh.
Unbelievable. Peter, I don't know if you saw the story. A kid had trouble with phonetic pronunciations. And
well, that was the best pronunciation I've heard ever of my name on the radio. So thank you.
Thank you, Peter.
Well, it's a Greek sister you have here.
It's a Greek thing.
All right, so Michael Cohen scheduled to appear today. Is that going to happen?
Yeah, that's set to happen this morning. He's going to be the first witness prosecutors called this morning. He also might be the last witness prosecutors called. They've said that his testimony might take a few days, and that once we're done with him and potentially one other witness to be determined, the state could rest their case.
Peter, I'm curious, is the jury told that Michael Cohen's already been to prison? He's already been on electronic monitoring. Is that all disclosed?
The defense won't miss that. Yeah.
So most of that has been mentioned to this jury. In a way, this is a jury that kind of was chosen with Michael Cohen in mind. During the voir dire process, jury selection, prosecutors asked these jurors that if they could set aside the fact that some witnesses have baggage, mentioning that one of these witnesses is a disbarred lawyer who's pleaded guilty to federal crimes, clearly mentioning Michael Cohen. His credibility is likely to be the sticking point of the entire testimony today and the next few days.
Now, Trump is a documented liar, 35,000 plus times in his first 4 years, but he is the defendant, not the witness. So there's no hay to be made, as I've saw all weekend online, of people going, well, Trump's a liar too. Mm-hmm. That's not the point. The point is Cohen believable or not as a witness, yes?
I mean, yeah, that's 100% right. At the end of the day, what matters to this jury is what Michael Cohen has done in the past and whether or not they can look past that and still think he's credible. Functionally, even if witnesses like Michael Cohen or Stormy Daniels say things that Trump disagrees with, in the eyes of the jury, it doesn't matter. They don't get to see what Donald Trump says on Truth Social or out in the hallway. Really, the only way Trump could address disagreements with Stormy Daniels or Michael Cohen is if he decided to take the witness stand himself and testify, essentially pitting his credibility against those witnesses.
That would be a really terrible idea for Trump.
That's a good question, because after the prosecution rests, right? I mean, what are the chances that Trump that his team would call him to take the stand?
Well, there's no way his attorneys would put him up. No. But the defendant has a right to say, I want to testify.
Yeah, right. Okay.
I think, as you mentioned, it's kind of like there's two questions there. One, do Donald Trump's defense lawyers want that to happen, which I clearly don't think is the case. They realize that having defendants on the witness stand is a liability. It opens up the door to extensive cross-examination.
Well, especially this defendant.
Yeah, and Donald Trump, though, has said he wants to testify in this case multiple times, suggesting again and again he would do it. He briefly tried to back out by suggesting that the gag order might stop him from testifying, but the judge cleared that up last week, saying, if you want to testify, you can. That is your choice. We'll see likely next week what decision Trump and his lawyers decide to make. Yeah,
a gag order doesn't apply to someone on the stand as a witness. They're there to answer questions. Look, Trump says a lot of things. Any minute now, the audit will be over, and we'll see his income from 2015. But in the meantime, what are those who allege to be experts telling you in regards to how they feel this is going, momentum-wise?
I think momentum-wise, the folks I've spoken with suggest that the evidence of falsified business records has come in nicely over the last week. We heard a lot about Stormy Daniels last week, but I think more importantly over the last week, the jury saw each of the 34 falsified documents that kind of sit at the center of the case. The invoices, the checks, the business ledgers that prosecutors say Trump falsified to hide information from voters. I guess what remains an open question and what Michael Cohen might answer is whether or not Trump made those records intentionally to commit a crime, whether he was fully aware of Michael Cohen's conduct. At the end of the day here with Michael Cohen, it's hard to underestimate his importance to this jury and to this case. Michael Cohen is expected to say that Donald Trump was not only aware of this conduct, but Donald Trump directed him to commit crimes. If the jury hears that and believes that, it could really be the final nail in the prosecution's case. Honestly, the next 3 days of Michael Cohen's testimony really make or break the prosecution's case, depending on if the jury believes Michael Cohen.
Are there any big witnesses, aside from Donald Trump, of course, who could testify on behalf of the defense that we're anticipating?
honestly, from the disclosures we've seen from the defense lawyers, there aren't that many. They might call an expert witness who could talk about election law. They might call Alan Garden, the former lawyer, at the Trump Organization. But really, the headline witness, to the extent he is called, would be Donald Trump. And we know if Donald Trump is called as a witness, there are things that he can't say. The judge has said he can't go up there and say, the lawyers told me this was okay. And we also know that prosecutors could cross-examine him on a slew of past civil and criminal findings against his company and against himself in the civil setting.
The defense can arrest by calling no witnesses, right?
Yeah, the burden is 100% on the prosecution here. Todd Blanche, Trump's main defense lawyer in this case, could just stand up and say, we have nothing to add, and then move us straight to closing statements next week. We'll really have to see if they think it's worth it. At the end of the day, the burden of proving this case fully rests on the government.
Is it possible this thing will be finalized with a jury verdict by the end of next week?
I think that's possible. I think it's possible that deliberations begin next week. Let's say that Trump puts on a short case. It might only take a day or two. That could take up the beginning of last week. Then we get to closing statements. And then it just becomes a question of how long this jury deliberates. Is it something that's quick, like the Eugene Carroll verdict earlier this year that took less than a few hours? Or is this the kind of deliberations that could stretch for days and have us waiting on edge to see if the jury is able to unanimously find Donald Trump guilty or not guilty, I guess?
Can the judge put restrictions on the length of those closing arguments? Because I could see in Trump's case, at least, that they would try and stretch that out.
I think they're probably going to come to a predetermined length of how long it should go. I guess what I think is very, underestimated but important in this case will be what's called the charge conference. This is going to be a hearing that the judge sets with Trump's lawyers to basically figure out what the jury will be told on the law. This is a complicated legal case using a somewhat novel legal theory that a lot of people have poked holes at. But at the end of the day, the jury are only determiners of fact. The judge will tell them how to interpret the law. And over the next few days, I expect we're going to learn more about how the judge interprets the law and what the jury will be told about how to interpret it. That will really clear up any of the folks who say on television or on radio that this case legally doesn't make sense. Because at the end of the day, a jury is in no position to toss a case because of a legal theory. All they're looking at basically is applying that theory and looking at the facts of the case. So that charge conference, maybe sometime this week or next week, could really hold the key to how long deliberations take and Donald Trump's fate in this trial.
And when the jury goes to deliberate, they get a document with jury instructions on it, which lay out those rules as they'll be told or seen by way of exhibits. And the jury foreman has to guide them through what to discuss in the back room where all this is going to go on.
Yeah, I'm sure jury instructions will take a day.
Well, the jury instructions in and of themselves, that's like the boundaries on the field. You got to play within those particular boundaries. Let's pretend Peter's graduating. Andrea, announce his name.
Peter Charalambous, ABC News investigative reporter covering the Trump trial.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you very much.
Caristo, Peter. That means thank you very much.
Yeah, I know.
What do you say?
Caristo Poli.